The call came from the FBI. The voice on the other end was gravel and ice, asking if I was Ethan Carter. I said I was. The agent informed me that my tech firm was under investigation for massive wire fraud and a federal Ponzi scheme. As the CEO, I was the primary suspect. They told me to come in for questioning immediately. My brain short-circuited. A high-pitched ring deafened me. I hung up and looked around my silent office. The cubicles were empty. The staff had sensed the coming storm and bailed days ago. I tried calling my wife, Sarah. It went straight to voicemail. I checked the corporate accounts. Zero. But it wasn't my money I was sweating over. It wasn't even the employees missing payroll. What terrified me was the money that didn't belong to me. The $50 million that was just supposed to be parking in my account for a week. That money belonged to a man named Russo. In the underworld, they just called him the Don. Chapter 1. The crash when the sky falls. It doesn't give you a 2-week notice. 24 hours ago, I was Ethan Carter, self-made tech entrepreneur, happily married man, living the American dream in Seattle. My startup was pulling in 8 figures, and the IPO was on the horizon. I had a beautiful, brilliant wife, Sarah Miller. We were college sweethearts. We'd built this life from ramen noodles in a dorm room to a penthouse downtown. She was my rock. The company was my passion, but the money? Sarah was the CFO. She handled the books. I used to joke with her over wine. Technically, you're the boss. I just work here. She'd punch me playfully on the arm, eyes sparkling. What's mine is yours, babe. We're a team, right? A team. That's why I entrusted her with everything. The corporate access keys, the digital signatures, my personal trust. I focused on the code and the clients, leaving the back end to the person I shared a bed with. Then the feds called, and my reality shattered. I sprinted to the finance office. The safe was wide open, gaping like a hungry mouth. The corporate accounts, my personal savings, my 401k, wiped clean overnight. I didn't even know she had opened secondary credit lines in my name until the alert started flooding my phone. My hand shook as I dialed Sarah again. The subscriber you have dialed is not available. Once, twice, 100 times. The robotic voice was a scalpel, carving out my insides. My few remaining loyal employees were huddled by the elevator, eyes filled with a mix of pity and panic. They had mortgages, kids, student loans. Mr. Carter, what's going on? Where's Sarah? Are we getting paid? My mouth tasted like copper. What could I say? Your CFO, my wife, embezzled everything and vanished? I drove home like a maniac. The house, our sanctuary, filled with photos of our travels and custom furniture, felt like a mausoleum. Her closet was stripped. The designer bags, the jewelry, the coats gone. Her vanity was bare. The only thing left was a divorce settlement, and signed, weighing down a solitary piece of paper on the nightstand. Or rather, signed by her. A flamboyant, hurried signature. The terms were simple. I got the debt. She got the assets. I collapsed onto the floor, the strength draining from my legs. I couldn't process it. 10 years. Was all along con? Every I love you. Every anniversary. Was it just a performance? My phone buzzed. An unknown number. I answered no. A man's laugh echoed through the speaker. Arrogant, grating. Ethan? Still breathing. I know that voice anywhere. Julian Thorne. My biggest competitor. The guy who'd been trying to undercut my contracts for years. Your wife is right here, Julian gloated. Oh, wait, correction. She's my girl now. She says 10 years with you is like watching paint dry. You're vanilla, Ethan. Boring. Blood rushed to my ears. My knuckles turned white around the phone. Julian, where is she? Put her on. I roared. Easy, tiger, Julian laughed. Don't worry. We'll put your hard-earned cash to good use. By the way, that Porsche you bought her drives like a dream. A little flashy for my taste, but hey, with the $100 million we pulled from your accounts, we could buy a fleet of them. Sarah also brought over your source code and client list. He continued, twisting the knife. She said sticking with a loser like you was a dead end. And she was right. Look at us. Instant retirement. You're a joke, Ethan. You thought you were the king of the world, but you were just a bankroll. In the background, I heard Sarah's laughter. It was light, carefree, and toxic. I smashed the phone against the wall. It shattered into plastic shrapnel. This wasn't a crime of passion. This wasn't a sudden mistake. This was a corporate assassination. A decade-long setup. Sarah and Julian were vipers who had been coiled around me, waiting for the moment I was fattest to strike. I thought of her sweetness, her feigned interest in the finances, the way she spent my money while sleeping with my enemy. Bile rose in my throat. I crawled to the bathroom and retched until there was nothing left but dry heaves and bitterness. The next few days were a blur of humiliation. The FBI, the SEC, the bank attorneys, I was spun around like a top. The evidence looked bad. Since I was the CEO, my digital signature was on everything. Sarah had used my credentials. Legally, I was the one who moved the money. Creditors banged on my front door. Someone spray-painted thief on my garage. Friends ghosted me. Sarah's parents, my in-laws, stormed into the lobby of my failing building. They screamed at me in front of the security guards, accusing me of having an affair, driving their innocent daughter away, and trying to frame her for my business failures. They claimed Sarah had told them I was abusive. Everyone believed them. To the world, I was a failed exec who looted his own company and tried to blame his missing wife. Meanwhile, Julian Thorne was living it up. He absorbed my client base, poached my dev team, and posted Instagram stories from a yacht in the Mediterranean. There was Sarah in a white bikini, holding a glass of champagne, leaning into Julian. The caption read, "New beginnings." They were burning through my life's work. I sat alone in the dark office, the power cut, smoking cigarettes I couldn't afford. I was a caged animal. I wanted blood. I wanted to burn them down. But how? The FBI said it was a complex white-collar case. It would take years to unravel. Sarah was my wife. Technically, accessing joint funds was a civil gray area. Julian had covered his tracks perfectly. I was finished. Then, a thought flickered in the darkness. The money. Russo's $50 million. That wasn't investment capital. It was cleaning money. Bridge financing for the darker side of the economy. Dominic Russo trusted me because my books were supposed to be clean. The deal was, hold it for 7 days, wire it out. Sarah and Julian didn't know the source. They just saw a fat deposit and grabbed along with the rest. They didn't steal from me. They stole from the mob. A chill ran down my spine, followed by a surge of adrenaline. I was drowning, but I had just found a loaded gun at the bottom of the ocean. I couldn't fight them with the law. The law was too slow. But Russo? Russo was a force of nature. Julian Thorne was a big shot in the tech world, but compared to Dominic Russo, he was an ant standing in the shadow of a boot. A plan formed. Cold. Precise. I wasn't going to report a theft. I was going to report a death sentence. I crushed the cigarette under my heel. My despair evaporated, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. Sarah, Julian, you think you won the game? No, we haven't even rolled the dice yet. Chapter 2. The Borrowed Blade. Once I made the decision, my panic vanished. I didn't run to Russo immediately. Men like Dominic Russo didn't deal in tears or excuses. They dealt in leverage and proof. If I walked in there empty-handed saying, "My wife took your cash," I'd be wearing cement shoes in the Puget Sound before sunset. I needed undeniable proof. I locked myself in the office, surviving on vending machine crackers and tap water. I couldn't go home. The marshals were seizing it. This was my bunker. I dove into the digital wreckage. Sarah was smart. She'd wiped the work servers. But I knew our habits better than she did. I found an old MacBook at the bottom of a closet, one we used for streaming movies years ago. It was synced to a shared cloud account she must have forgotten about. I tried to access a locked folder labeled taxes. Anniversary? Incorrect. Her birthday? Incorrect. I closed my eyes, replaying 10 years of memories. I typed in the date of our first kiss. Access granted. What I found wasn't a tax return. It was a manifesto of betrayal. It was a detailed roadmap. Julian had been coaching her for 18 months. There were PDFs on how to structure shell companies in the Caymans, how to siphon microtransactions to avoid SEC red flags, and how to transfer my IP to Julian's holding company. And the chat logs. God, the chat logs. Sarah, the idiot signed a new contract today. That's another $200K for the escape fund. Julian, good girl. Once we bleed him dry, we'll buy that villa in Tuscany. You won't have to look at his pathetic face ever again. Sarah, I bought you that vintage Rolex today. Used as Amex. Considered a parting gift from Ethan. Every word was a bullet. I didn't cry. I was past sadness. I felt like a surgeon looking at a tumor. It just needed to be cut out. I compiled everything. The chats, the bank routing numbers, the IP theft. I highlighted the transfer of Russo's $50 million specifically. It had gone straight into a numbered Swiss account controlled by Shell Corp listed in Julian's name. Evidence secured. Time to meet the lender. Dominic Russo didn't have an office. He operated out of the Onyx Club, a members-only cigar lounge in a historic district of Seattle that the police rarely patrolled. I had an in. An old developer of mine, a kid named Leo, had a gambling problem years ago. He owed Russo's people. I paid off Leo's debt, 30 grand. No questions asked, just to keep him from getting his legs broken. I never asked for it back. I called Leo. He set the meeting. Dom respects loyalty, Leo told me, his voice shaking. Just tell the truth. Don't stutter. I shaved, put on my last clean suit, and walked into the Onyx Club. The air smelled of rich tobacco and old money. Russo was sitting in a leather wingback chair near the fireplace, sipping a single malt scotch. He was in his 60s, looking more like a retired senator than a crime boss, but the two men standing in the shadows behind him were built like tanks. Mr. Carter, Russo said. His voice was low, smooth. Leo speaks highly of you. Says you saved his skin. I didn't sit. I placed an iPad on the mahogany table in front of him. Mr. Russo, my company has been gutted. My wife and my competitor, Julian Thorne, cleared out the accounts. Russo swirled his scotch. He didn't look impressed. Business goes bad, Ethan. That's life. I know, I said, meeting his gaze. But included in the funds they stole was your $50 million. The bridge capital. Russo's hand stopped moving. The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. I'm not here to ask for an extension, I said clearly. I'm here to show you exactly who took your money and where they are spending it. He picked up the iPad. He scrolled through the documents. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crackle of the fireplace. It felt like an hour. It was probably 5 minutes. Russo set the iPad down. He took a slow sip of his drink. Ethan, do you know why I prefer scotch to wine? I shook my head. Wine spoils if you don't drink it. Scotch just gets stronger with time. It has patience, but steal a man's scotch. He chuckled darkly. That's a violation of hospitality. He pulled a burner phone from his jacket pocket and dialed a number. It's me, Russo said. I have 2 names for you. Julian Thorne. Sarah Miller. Send the packet. I'm about to email you to your contact at the DOJ and the FBI. Priority read. He paused, listening. Yes. Fraud. Money laundering. Wire fraud. Make them look like international flight risks. I want their assets frozen globally. I want their faces on every screen from Times Square to Tokyo within 24 hours. He hung up. You did the right thing coming to me, Ethan, Russo said, standing up. He was shorter than me, but he felt 10 feet tall. The police need procedure. I just need a target. We'll call the $50 million a bad investment. For now, you help me recover it. We're square. He motioned to the door. Go home. Watch the news. I walked out into the cool Seattle rain. I took a deep breath. I had borrowed the blade, and it was sharper than anything I could have imagined. Russo's reach was terrifying. He didn't just call thugs. He pulled levers in the machinery of the state. He had dirt on people in high places, or maybe he just knew exactly how to package the evidence so the feds couldn't ignore it. 2 days later, I was eating takeout in my empty office when the TV in the lobby flashed a breaking news alert. Breaking! Massive international manhunt launched for tech fraud duo. The screen split. On the left, Sarah's driver's license photo. On the right, Julian's LinkedIn headshot. Federal authorities have charged Julian Thorne and Sarah Miller with embezzlement, grand larceny, and RICO violations totaling over $150 million. Russo hadn't just framed them for the theft. He'd pinned a money laundering tail on them that made them look like cartel financiers. This wasn't just a white-collar crime anymore. It was a threat to national security. My phone exploded. The same relatives who had cursed me were now calling, frantic. Ethan, is that true about Sarah? Oh my God. On CNN, they're calling her the Black Widow of tech. I ignore them all. Social media was ruthless. Hashtag Thorne fraud was trending. TikTok sleuths were dissecting their old posts, finding clues, mocking their arrogance. The court of public opinion had convened, and the verdict was guilty scum. Meanwhile, 5,000 miles away, on the Amalfi coast of Italy, Sarah and Julian were lounging on a private terrace at Le Sirenius, overlooking the Azure Sea. Do you think he's crying right now? Sarah giggled, adjusting her oversized sunglasses. Who cares? Julian smirked, signaling the waiter. Another bottle of Dom Perignon. The waiter arrived, looking uncomfortable. Signore. There's a problem with the card. Try it again. Julian snapped, tossing a black Amex onto the tray. It has no limit. We tried all of them, sir. Declined. All of them. Julian frowned, pulling out his phone to check his banking app. Access denied. Account frozen by federal order. Sarah checked hers. Same message. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced their bubble. It's a glitch, Julian stammered. We have a Swiss accounts. We need to get a Zurich. They ran back to their suite to pack. But as they stepped out of the hotel lobby, dragging their Louis Vuitton trunks, the flashing blue lights of the Carabinieri blinded them. Julian Thorne? Sarah Miller? An Interpol agent stepped forward, holding up a warrant. You're under arrest for wire fraud and international money laundering. Put your hands behind your backs. No, you can't, Sarah shrieked as the cuffs clicked tight. We're American citizens. Call the embassy. The embassy already knows, ma'am. They revoked your passports an hour ago. Passers-by held up phones, recording the scene. The flashbulbs popped like fireworks. Julian looked pale, defeated. Sarah looked like a trapped rat. I watched the footage later that night on the news. Sarah, being shoved into an Italian police car, looking back at the camera with sheer terror. I didn't feel joy. I felt a hollow, cold satisfaction, like a mathematical equation that finally balanced out. Chapter 4. The Liquidation. The extradition was fast. Russo's lawyers must have greased the wheels. Once they were back on U.S. soil, the love of the century disintegrated instantly. In separate interrogation rooms, they turned on each other with feral intensity. It was Julian, Sarah sobbed to the prosecutors. He manipulated me. He said Ethan was abusive. I was brainwashed. I didn't know where the money came from. She's a psychopath. She planned the whole thing. She stole her husband's passwords. I was just a consultant. I'm a victim here. Their sworn statements destroyed any chance of a joint defense. They handed the DA everything needed to bury them both. While they rotted in holding, I went to work. With Julian in jail and his assets frozen, his company went into a tailspin. Investors panicked. The stock plummeted. I approached his board of directors. I had a new silent partner, Russo's legitimate investment arm. We offered a buyout for pennies on the dollar. Sell to me, I told them, or go down with the ship. They sold. I didn't just survive, I absorbed my enemy. I took back my IP, I took his clients, and I moved into his larger, nicer office building. Then came the family. My in-laws, the same people who had screamed at me, showed up at my reception desk. They looked 10 years older. Ethan, my mother-in-law, wept, reaching for my hand. Please, she's your wife. If you just write a letter of forgiveness, the judge might go easy. We sold the house to pay for her lawyer, but it's not enough. I pulled my hand back. A letter? I asked. Sure. Can you return the $50 million plus interest? Can you return the year of hell you put me through? We don't have it. Her father stammered. But family. Family. I laughed, a dry barking sound. You stood in this very lobby and called me a failure and an abuser. You disowned me when you thought I was broke. Now that I'm the CEO of the biggest firm in the city, I'm family again. I signaled security. Get them out. They were dragged away, screaming curses that turned into pleas. I watched them go, feeling lighter. I wasn't cruel. I was just done carrying dead weight. Chapter 5. Closure. 8 months later, the gavel fell. Because of the high-profile nature of the case and the organized crime links Russo had manufactured, the judge threw the book at them. Julian Thorne, 25 years. Sarah Miller, 20 years. No parole eligibility for at least 15. My life had moved on. The company went public. I was dating again, a smart, fierce attorney who actually read the contracts I signed. One rainy Tuesday, I got a call from the federal penitentiary. Sarah had requested a visit. She was on suicide watch. She wouldn't stop screaming my name. Curiosity, or maybe a need for a final period at the end of the sentence, made me go. I sat behind the thick plexiglass. Sarah walked in. She was unrecognizable. The gray prison jumpsuit hung off her frame. Her hair was dull and chopped short. Her eyes, once bright and manipulative, were two black holes of despair. She picked up the phone. Her hands were trembling. Ethan, Her voice was a rusty hinge. I'm sorry. Oh God, I'm so sorry. I was stupid. I ruined everything. Please, please help me. I can't survive in here. She pressed her forehead against the glass. I love you. I always loved you. It was just the money, the pressure. Tell them you forgive me. Maybe they'll reopen the case. I watched her break down. I looked for the woman I had married, but she wasn't there. Maybe she never was. I picked up the receiver. Sarah. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. I didn't come here to save you, I said softly. I came here to make sure I didn't feel anything. Ethan, I don't hate you, I said. Hating you would require energy. Hating you would mean you still matter. I stood up. I feel nothing. You're just a bad line of code, I deleted. Ethan, no, don't walk away, she screamed, slamming her fists against the glass. Ethan, I hung up the phone. I turned my back on her screaming face and walked toward the exit. Outside, the rain had stopped. The Seattle sky was breaking open, revealing a brilliant, piercing blue. My phone buzzed. It was my new partner. Hey, handsome. The merger went through. Champagne is on ice at the penthouse. You coming? I smiled, walking toward my car, a cherry red Porsche 911. Yeah, I said. I'm on my way. I pulled out of the lot, watching the gray walls of the prison disappear in the rearview mirror, shrinking until they were nothing but a speck of dust.